Hello, friends, and welcome to a Happy New Year edition of the Happy Half Hour.
It is a Happy New Year.
Did I say that what time?
I think you
Monday?
did, but today it actually fits because this is, according to my computer, this is New Year's Eve.
It is New Year's Eve. There's a football helmet in front of us instead of our stately tree that we enjoyed through the holidays. So
I
that
think
must
we should
mean
keep the tree.
That must mean it's time for football, and your Carolina Panthers are about to football in a way they haven't in a long, long time.
In a way they haven't. This is essentially like a play-in game. Like, you know how NBA has gone to play-in games?
Yep.
I kind of like the NBA play-in games. This essentially feels like the same thing, although technically it's not. But yeah.
You know, here's the thing about this, and I was thinking about this morning. One calendar year ago today, your Carolina Panthers were sporting a 4-12 record. I was doing math in my notebook about the worst defenses in NFL history.
Yeah.
I was calculating how many rushing yards they needed to allow in Atlanta to become the all-time leader or whatever in those terrible categories.
Which I think they did.
And they were second all-time in rushing yards, most in points allowed. But the point stands, I was doing the opposite kind of math 1 year ago today. Yeah. Today, your Carolina Panthers are a clean 8-8 going into the finale at Tampa Bay on Sunday with the playoffs on the line. And I just want to spend a minute thinking about how much this team has changed in one calendar year because, you know, again, a year ago today, Bryce hadn't gone to Atlanta, thrown that pass, you know, the turnaround number to Tommy Tremble where he's looking like Steph Curry, you know, and we weren't sure what any of this stuff meant. And in the year since, this team has come farther in 1 year than any I've probably seen since maybe 2012 to 2013, maybe 02 to 03. I mean, this is the kind of jump this team has made this year, and they put themselves in a really good place for the future, no matter what happens Saturday night in Tampa. No matter what happens at anything after that point. I mean, even if this team loses at Tampa and finishes the season 8-9, perish the thought, it will still be such incredible progress from where they were 1 year ago today that it's almost hard to believe it's the same team.
And I know that there is an argument to be made, and somebody's going to play devil's advocate and say, well, the only reason they have a chance to make the playoffs is because the rest of the division stumbled. Because Tampa just kind of, you know, whatever, fell apart coming down the stretch, and the Saints didn't start Tyler Shuck till too late in the season, that the Falcons did what they did. Okay, somebody still has to win enough to do it. And I think at the beginning of the season, the projected over-under on wins was like 6.5?
Yeah.
Something like that. To get those extra wins, to get those wins that nobody thought you would, like versus the Packers, versus the Rams, to get the ones that you needed to get, like versus Atlanta, to get at least the first Tampa Bay win, I think is a lot to be said. Like, to your point, no matter what happens on Saturday and then the following Sunday, no matter what happens, it's still ahead of schedule, and they put themselves in the position to have a chance here. And that's impressive to do in a year's turnaround.
And also for context, this is a team that carried 12 rookies into the opening week of the season. They did that on purpose, mostly because they drafted well and found a bunch of guys who have contributing roles this year and a bunch of undrafted guys.
The drafted players. And
Ryan Fitzgerald.
Corey Thornton.
Corey Thornton. I mean, they've found contributions from guys throughout that rookie class. 11 offensive line combinations in 16 weeks now. They've had a couple of repeats along the way. And doing that with your best offensive lineman, probably, Rob Hunt, going down in week 2 to injured reserve. And we still don't know if he's going to be able to play this week or not, or whether he comes back during the playoffs. So they have overcome a lot of stuff. They are in an incredible place. And, I mean, I just think at this time of reflection on New Year's Eve, you know, to think back on the job Dan and Dave and Brant have done over the last 365 days, it's hard to believe. I mean, it truly is. They've done a ton of work. This team's probably ahead of schedule where a lot of people thought they were going to be, and stabilized in a way that this team hadn't been in, 8-10 years. I mean, we keep talking about in terms of playoffs and stuff, going back to 17, going back to 15. This is an awful lot to me like that 13 season where a team began to get good and began to realize it was getting good. And that's no small feat.
You know what this kind of reminds me of a little bit?
Tell me.
Because, I mean, to your point, it's New Year's Eve. You kind of reflect back on the last year. I would sit here and say, again, no matter what happens Saturday, and I know we'll get into actually previewing the game and the details, I would consider 2025 a success for the Carolina Panthers. And
Stop the count today, right now. It's over. Sure.
I understand
no
there is an argument to be made, and somebody would come back and say, well, you always want to make the playoffs, and if you don't, then it's not a success. You have a chance to make the playoffs sitting here in front of you. If you don't, is it or is it not a success? A couple of years ago, when I was still in Wisconsin covering the teams there,
they have teams
Bucks,
in Wisconsin?
Yeah, a few here and there.
Oh, yeah, the Green Bay
Bucks
Packers.
got knocked out of the first round of the playoffs by the Miami Heat. This was 2 years after they had won the championship. They get knocked out of the first round. We're in the post-game press conference, and Giannis Antetokounmpo gives this kind of impassioned speech about what do we consider success in sports. Because he was asked, how does it feel for this season to be a failure? And he said, how do you measure success and how do you measure failure? And he gave this, like I said, this really impassioned speech about it, and it was interesting to hear, and I've kind of carried it with me ever since, of what do you those are almost two separate questions. And what do you consider success? What do you consider failure? And how do you measure it when there's technically only one team that would consider a season as a success at the end of the year? Mm-hmm. Does that make every other team a failure? Maybe black and white, yes, but I think there's more layers to it than that. And full picture, yeah. Again, as we sit here and reflect on the year, I would consider it a success.
I keep thinking back to training camp, and people ask me what I thought about the team and, well, how do you think they're going to do this year? And my standard answer was better, with kind of a shrug, because I thought coming out of training camp or during training camp, I thought this looks like a 7-win team to me. Mm-hmm. This looks like a team that's more stable, more normal, those words I've used all year long. And I thought 7 was kind of the threshold for where they were. They've already hit 8, got an opportunity at 9 this weekend. I mean, you will get to a point with this Carolina Panthers team. As they go into next year, expectations will be higher, and everybody will recalibrate. And then if you don't go to the playoffs, people will be disappointed. So you'll get to that point. But I think it's perfectly fine. If you're a fan of the Carolina Panthers, and if you're watching the Happy Half Hour presented by our friends at Deep Eddy, you are. I think that it's okay to be okay with everything that's happened to this point. So it's nothing but good news, I think, for the season. You've found out that certain guys are going to be part of this thing when this team's seriously contending for playoff spots, championships in the years to come. They've found dudes who are going to be part of those teams. And I think that's the biggest challenge of this year, was finding out who some of those contributors were going to be, learning what the strengths of this team were going to be, figuring out what you had to do moving forward. And we'll get to all that. But for right now, in this New Year's Eve box, I think it's okay to say mission accomplished so far with some work to be done.
All that to say, you still want to win on Saturday.
That's right.
And it's hard, Darin. It's hard to beat a team twice in 3 weeks. And interestingly enough, ironically enough, if they do it, then the flip side of that will be they're probably going to face a team that they have seen recently in the first round of the playoffs.
Or is it just coincidental?
Or is it just how the playoffs work?
Yeah, sometimes that's just how it plays.
Yeah. The point is they will then probably face a team. It could even be Seattle, which would then mean that they would have faced the same 2 teams in a 4-week span.
Right.
And how do those laws of probability work out? It is hard to beat a team twice in 3 weeks.
Again, 365 days ago, 4-12.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about who you're playing in the first round of the playoffs potentially, and it's going to be somebody from that NFC West that they've seen the entirety of all year long. And that's tough. I mean, those are all great teams, which we know, having seen them over the course of the year. And as we talked about Monday, you know why Seattle won that game?
Because they were the better team.
Because they were real good at football. Yeah. And Sam Darnold and that team's playing really well, and they're going to be a threat to just about anybody. So, that's what I'm saying about the progression of this team. The Panthers have gotten to that point where they can compete with people. You've seen them go to Green Bay, get that win. You've seen them beat the Rams. here a couple weeks back. So, it's all progress.
Yeah.
And now it all comes down to Saturday afternoon.
The Bucks have lost a lot of really close games.
Mm-hmm.
I think 4 of their last 4 losses have all been decided by 4 points or less. It's a lot of 4s.
Yeah.
And then you look at the Panthers' schedule, and they've also had a lot of close games. Some of them have been losses. A good bit of them have also been wins. If you look since week 8, I mean, did we do this on Monday, Matt? Did we go through this? We did. This. I was about to say this. I actually just had major deja vu that we did this already.
Well,
point is the Panthers have won some of those close games.
No doubt. I mean, the Panthers are starting to figure that out. As long as this is the Tampa Bay Bucks, it's going to reasonably create some apprehension in all fans of the Carolina Panthers because Mike Evans over there on the other side. They're going to give out bobbleheads to Mike Evans on Saturday.
I thought about trying to grab one.
And, if you grab one, keep it away from certain people in franchise history because it might just score a touchdown on them. But Mike Evans puts up numbers. Mike Evans is a problem. He's one of the great receivers of all time. He has an opportunity maybe someday, depending on how much longer he plays, of being in those Hall of Fame conversations. But I just think that because you've got a Mike Evans, because you've got a Baker Mayfield and a bunch of dudes who have been there before, that's the thing that makes me nervous about playing a team twice in a short amount of time is how much experience these guys have.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't lose 7 out of 8 for no reason. The Bucs have struggled in some very specific areas. But in a one-game setting, you still kind of subconsciously revert to, that's Mike Evans over there on the other side. He knows what to do in situations like this. So it's definitely going to – I think anybody anticipating anything other than a dogfight on Saturday afternoon is probably misguided. But even though the trend lines are moving in 2 completely different directions for these 2 teams, I still go back to, that's Mike Evans over there. I watched him take a Panthers team that was feeling real good about itself in 22 and drop 2 bills on them. So it's always going to be tough as long as cats like Vita Vea, cats like Mike Evans, cats like Baker Mayfield are involved.
And they did hold Mike Evans in Week 16 to 5 for 31 yards. One of those 5 was a touchdown. One of those targets that was not a reception ended up in a DPI on J.C. Horn. Gave the Bucs the ball at the 1-yard line, and then Sean Tucker punched it in. And so on the stat sheet, he was kind of held to like a really pedestrian day for Mike Evans, but he still finds ways to impact the game, and that's where you have to kind of figure out how to shut him down almost completely. I think it's impossible to shut him down completely, but you got to do. They did about as well as you can in Week 16, but can you do that again for the second time in 3 weeks? Altogether, the passing game really kind of struggled for Tampa Bay in Week 16. I mean, Baker only finished with 145 yards. The run game is really what hurt them. Did you see the pendulum swing the other way this time? Canales talked about it yesterday, too, about the challenge of facing the same team twice in 3 weeks. And he's like, you don't really have a ton of time to change anything you're going to do,
right?
Especially this late in the season. And that works for both teams. And so it's more than anything just a matter of lining up across the guy across from. I said that completely wrong.
That's right.
Lining up across the guy on the other side of you and just beating him. And which team is able to do that? It's interesting, too, because there is like a mental aspect to it. I know J.J. Jansen told me one time I don't believe in momentum, and he's been playing this game a lot longer than the rest of us have. So I have to believe him. But I don't know, at least from the outside looking in, you have to see some sort of like mental aspect that is affecting both of these teams. The Panthers think when our back is against the wall, we can come out and win these games because they've done it. The Bucs have kind of stumbled away some games in the past 8 weeks. And so does that factor in? Or like you said, what factors in more? The 7 of the last 8 that have become losses, or the 4 division titles in a row? We've been here. We know how to do this.
That's right. By the way, 20-second timeout. Somebody asked Tracy Smith today about J.J. Jansen.
Yeah.
and how much longer J.J. Jansen could do this. And I applaud Tracy Smith for heading that off at the pass. He said, and I quote, he can do this for as long as he wants to. He's everlasting. There's no proof that he's not a robot. Nobody knows that he's not AI.
When I think of JJ, I think of AI.
That's right. He's an artificial intelligence long snapper. He is a machine.
Yeah.
And, JJ's one of the guys, and as we've talked about kind of the past, there's some stuff coming up on Panthers.com y'all are going to want to check out. I've talked to him and some of the guys involved in the 14 game at Atlanta to close out the season, which was the last time they were in this win and end situation. And it was kind of a similar vibe in that there was a team that was starting to figure out what it wanted to be, but they took a step back early in that year, and they really had to reset. So some cool comments from JJ, Trey Boston, Ron Rivera, a lot of your favorites. You'll definitely want to check that out. But it's just about figuring out on Saturday night whether this team is ready to take that next step or whether all that works out in front of them. And again, I just think that because everything that happens prior to now has been successful, everything has been a positive development, it almost doesn't matter. But now that you're here, you definitely want to win that game.
Yeah.
And you definitely want to be sitting here next Monday having us talk about playing
Another
so-and-so in the first round of the playoffs, because that game would be right here in Bank of America Stadium.
Yeah.
And it's been 10 years since we've done that, friends. And I'm looking forward to it because I've seen what the atmosphere was like in this building the last two home games. Fans were into it. I've gotten more texts from friends and just say, man, this was super cool. My wife hadn't been in 10 years. She loved this, stuff like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, the team's playing better. Everybody's fired up, and everybody wants to see it.
I think, too, we'll see a motivated Derek Brown, a guy who felt some type of way about not making the Pro Bowl and was ready to show how he could disrupt a game, and he played really, really well on Sunday, I feel like, versus Seattle. You'll see a lot of you've got a lot of guys right on the precipice of, setting franchise records, too. There's something that goes into that of knowing, I'm playing really, really – Mike Jack is playing really well right now.
Yep.
And he feels confident. Man, we saw him in that last game versus Tampa getting into it with Baker the whole time. When guys are playing confident, it helps them elevate their entire game. We've seen Bryce swing back from these lackluster performances and come back to have a great performance the next week. Does that happen again this week? You see guys like T-Mac there on the precipice of 1,000 yards. These are guys that know that they can do it, and especially on defense, you've got guys that are playing really, really confidently, and it'll make for an interesting matchup.
Bryce gave the Brycest answer ever yesterday when we were talking about the idea of swinging wildly back and forth between this end of the spectrum and that end of the spectrum. And so, after throwing for 54 yards last week, he kept talking about flush it, move on, flush it, move on. You wrote about that out of the locker room last Sunday night. And I just said, is it easier to flush a 300-yard game or a 150-yard game? And he kind of looked at me and grinned. He said, you're not going to like this answer, Bryce. Answers are value neutral. My questions are just vehicles for your response. And he said, you're not going to like this, but they're all the same. So he treats all this stuff.
I believe him.
Exactly the same. And I absolutely believe him. The other funny one was when somebody asked him about the chaos scenario where Atlanta wins on Monday night, they create the condition where a three-way tie at 8 and 9 exists so the Panthers could lose at Tampa on Saturday and still go to the playoffs. So that would only require, the Falcons beating the Saints at home on Sunday. And, Bryce kind of made this face, and he looked at him, and he was like, I don't know what that is. Anybody else, I would have sworn they were lying. If J.J. Jansen was asked that question in his inimitable years of wisdom, he'd be like, oh, yeah, of course. We had calculated this out to the 8th decimal point 6 weeks ago. Bryce like, no, man, I don't know what that is. And somebody had to explain it to him, which I 100% believe that was the truth out of Bryce Young in that moment. So they've got a bunch of dudes who are about to do a new thing. This is uncharted territory for a young Carolina Panthers team, and so it's going to be cool to see how they react to it. So we got a couple other notes I wanted to touch on. We just got news a little bit before we went on the air here at the Happy Half Hour. A legend of the NFC South, Gene Deckerhoff, the legendary Bucs announcer, is retiring at the end of this season, which may be Saturday night. Gene is a wonderful human being. I had the pleasure of sharing a cab from the Tampa Airport Marriott to Raymond James with him one time. And if you ever want to feel like a rock star, get out of a cab with Gene Deckerhoff.
Okay.
I mean, after
Noted.
he's got that, I'm standing there at the Marriott minding my own business, and I hear, need a cab to Raymond James. It's like, whoa, that's Gene Deckerhoff without even turning around. I was like, you can share my cab, sir. And when we got out at Raymond James, like, Gene, whoa, fans are going crazy, and they're like, who's this idiot getting out of the car with Gene Deckerhoff? So
You just needed to split the fare.
that's right. You can give me a receipt for that, right?
Yeah.
At any rate, we will miss Gene Deckerhoff, a legend of the NFC South. It's always cool to see him, have him a part of the broadcast. DL and the boys at Panthers Radio Network always visit with him before these games, and everybody's going to miss Gene. Speaking of legendary voices, I got to give a shout-out to our guy Cal Davies from the Community Relations Department. Cal rang the bell for about $25,000 worth of cash and prizes last night on Wheel of Fortune. So shout out to Cal Davies for that.
Congratulations, Cal.
It was a big night for Cal. He got to meet Vanna White, Ryan Seacrest, after his mother had also played Wheel of Fortune 30 years ago.
A family legacy.
I mean, that's crazy. No matter what happens, the money will get taxed away or whatever. He'll spend it, enjoy that trip to Mexico. But he's always going to be able to say, you know what's heavier than you think? That wheel on Wheel of Fortune.
And he has a cool fact for life. I once won Wheel of Fortune.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a thing not many people have done. Speaking of fun facts, Luke Kuechly gets to call himself a two-time Hall of Fame finalist. Yep. That was announced the other morning. Unfortunately, Steve Smith did not make that cut this year. You could pull my string and I could do my 15-minute TED Talk about why Steve Smith belongs in the Hall of Fame, and we'll do that at some point again. But suffice to say, the rules changes that the Hall put into place last year that led to a three-man class last year meant a lot more holdover finalists from a year ago. And when you crank in a first-year class that includes Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Frank Gore, Jason Witten, that meant somebody from last year's final 15 had to go. And it was Fred Taylor and Steve Smith. Whether that's fair or unfair, I'll leave that for you to decide. I know how I feel. But Luke will be in that final 15, and sometime between now and the Super Bowl, that committee will get together and discuss that. Hopefully Luke comes out on the other side this season. I think in his second year, there is a good chance for that. Again, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, excellent candidates. I think most people assume they're going to skate on through this thing pretty easily. Drew Brees second in all the things we count behind some guy named Tom Brady. Larry Fitzgerald second in all the things we count behind some guy named Jerry Rice. So I'm feeling pretty good about those two. Hopefully this is the year Luke gets through.
Yeah. We'll definitely be watching. And he's been killing it on the Monday Night Playbook simulcast, too. So
yeah,
good job, Luke.
Who knew Luke Kuechly saw
Knows
the
football.
future? I mean, he can call things out before they happen. Oh, all the people who watched Luke Kuechly for all these years.
Yeah.
So we'll get to enjoy the wisdom of Luke Kuechly on the broadcast this weekend, right, DL? Yes, sir. Luke will be there. Luke will be in Tampa. We'll be in Tampa. And when we come back on the other side, I hope we're doing a playoff edition of the Happy Half Hour, which is something that I can promise you I have never said in the history of this show. We're breaking ground left and right here, folks. So stay tuned to Panthers.com for the next several days. We got all kind of cool stuff coming your way. Keep it locked on the YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button. All the good stuff coming your way. All the good stuff coming your way, hopefully, in the new year. So happy New Year to everybody else. Eat your black-eyed peas and your collard greens and all that cool stuff tomorrow. Have a sip of Deep Eddy to wash it down. Thanks to our sponsors who carried us through this season. We appreciate all of y'all. And hopefully when we do it again next week, we're talking about the playoffs on the Happy Half Hour.